from some of President Trump's key policies. Biden has already lifted the Trump administration's ban on transgender Americans serving and has ordered a review of sexual assault in the military. He has also sent troops into combat, something President Trump didn't do. A man who opened fire at a Minnesota health clinic, killing one staff member and wounding 4 others, previously threatened to carry out a mass shooting at the facility. That according to a police report. 67-year-old Gregory Paul Ulrich was arrested in Tuesday's attack at an Alina clinic in Buffalo, Minnesota, a community of about 15,000 people, roughly 40 miles northwest of Minneapolis. He remained jailed in Wright County on Wednesday and was expected to appear in court on Thursday. Ulrich has a long history of conflict with medical clinics in the area and has been unhappy with the care he has received. That according to Buffalo Chief of Police Pat Budke. A private university in North Carolina has canceled a whites-only caucus to process complicity in racism. Here's American Family News reporter Chris Woodward with the story.
News of the caucus broke Tuesday when Young America's Foundation issued a report on the existence of the caucus. YAF was made aware of the situation through its campus bias tip line. Speaking Wednesday afternoon on the Todd Starnes Show, YAF spokesman Spencer Brown said the organization has since learned that the university has canceled the event.
It is a civil rights violation. You can't offer programs only for students of a certain skin color here in the United States, thankfully. And it shows, because this came to us through our campus bias tip line, it shows how one student who thinks, hey, this is not right, can let us know what's going on their campus. We can bring a larger spotlight to that issue, and we can force the school to sort of fix the error of their ways.
Elon University is located in Elon, North Carolina, east of Greensboro.
The school initially ignored our questions when we reached out for comment, not even answering our question and just saying they offer a number of programs for racial harmony on campus. And then when the story was then published and news outlets and things started to reach out to the university, then they realized they had a problem on their hands because people were going to see what was going on. And so they then decided, thankfully, to do the right thing and cancel this racially segregated programming.
I'm Chris Woodward.
Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell says the economic recovery in the United States is very fragile, but he did downplay the risk of inflation in a meeting on Wednesday. Still, the markets ended mixed, with the Dow gaining 62 points. The Nasdaq lost 35 and a quarter, while the S&P 500 was down a point and change. Find more news and information online. Our web address is onenewsnow.com. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordahl.
Have you been looking for a way to serve others? Are you able to serve in a ministry without being paid? You and Friendships might be the perfect match. Friendships is currently taking applications for volunteers providing aid to disaster victims, refugees, and the impoverished, both here at home and around the world. Get more information at friendships.org or by calling 337-433-5022.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. I am especially excited today because we have our renewed full squad in the building. We miss you, Rob. I know Rob checks in because he misses us so deeply. I'm your host, Abraham Hamilton III, and we have a full squad in the studio today. To my immediate left is Mr. Jeff Reed. To his left is Marty Sparks, lighting up the dark in studio. And then to my right, we have Bobby, Mr. Bobby Rosa. Thank you to each and every one of you who have tuned into the program today. We are grateful that you've made that decision to do so. It's never lost on me that there are plenty of people out there talking, podcasts, radio shows, you name it. But you've made the decision to hang out with us here in the corner, and I just wanted to tell you that we absolutely appreciate that. And today, while a farce is transpiring within the halls of the Senate, what goes on in your house is still more important than people lying in Washington, D.C. or those getting their political fields or whatever you want to call it. What goes on in your house is still more important than what goes on in the White House, what goes on in the Senate, what goes on in the Capitol building. Your home is the first context that God has given us to be faithful within as his ambassadors, which is why, as many of you are making that transition from your part-time jobs to your full-time jobs, I want to encourage you to do so with full intentionality and full cognizance as to what it is exactly that you have the opportunity to do. You literally have the opportunity to stand as an ambassador of the eternal kingdom of God, beginning as a witness for his glory to your family. And I encourage you to do that and do so robustly. Today we're going to go to John chapter 8 to begin the program. And I just want to show you that just because something may be new to us doesn't mean it is new. A friend of the program, Abdu Murray, I interviewed him on this program when his book, Saving Truth, was published. The subscript for it was Finding Meaning and Clarity in a Post-Truth World. And we have, if you haven't recognized it yet, you remember what was that show? Star Trek, Boldly Go Where No Man Has Gone Before. We have boldly entered into a time frame and a mental context in our country where we are living in a post-truth culture. I don't know if you recognized it yet. We're going to get into I have some content to illustrate that. But I mean, a perfect example. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to focus on the Word of God right now. But I want to show you that what we are encountering, though it may be new to us in our personal interactions, in our personal context, it is not new to the Lord, and it is not new to humankind. Because the reality is, truth is a person. And living according to facts that accord with truth really has a spiritual underpinning. It's not merely the accumulation of information. Because if it was merely the accumulation of factual information, we wouldn't have a debate as to whether or not biology was actually biologically, scientifically accurate. Anyway, John chapter 8. Explain a little bit of this context. In John chapter 8, John records Jesus providing one of his profound I am sayings. When you study the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke are widely considered the synoptic Gospels, based on the Greek word which means from a common view. John is not included in the description of a synoptic gospel because John primarily spends a significant amount of time writing in such a way to convey the divinity of the Christ, Jesus, the Messiah, the divine reality of the Messiah, which is why he didn't have, there's some accounts that John includes that the other gospels do not include. All right. And so John had provided some I am sayings. I've explained before, the Greek construction for I am is ego eimi. When Jesus came walking on the water, he didn't just say, hey, yo, this is Jesus, your homeboy, you should catch fish with you. No, he said I am, which is the Greek rendering of what Yahweh revealed to Moses in Exodus 3 before the burning bush. When Moses said, well, upon whose authority can I tell Pharaoh to let your people go? And Yahweh, through the burning bush, said, tell them I am sent you. So when Jesus says that as he's walking on water, he's not announcing himself as a familiar friend. He is making a declaration of divinity. I am walking to you on the water because I am the one who created this water. Oh, don't get me started because I get excited. But in John chapter 8, verse 31 includes a portion of scripture where after Jesus makes these profound statements, some Jews begin to believe in him. And then the conversation proceeds from there. So I'll start at verse 31. I'm just going to read the text first. Verse 31. So Jesus was saying to those Jews who had believed in him, if you continue in my word, or some transliterations say, abide in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine. And you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. They answered him, we are Abraham's descendants, and have never yet been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who commits sin is the slave of sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The son does remain forever. So if the son makes you free, you will be free indeed. I know that you are Abraham's descendants, yet you seek to kill me, because my word has no place in you. I speak the things which I have seen with my father. Therefore you also do the things which you heard from your father. Your father. Your father. They answered him, verse 39, and they answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said to them, if you are Abraham's children, do the deeds of Abraham. But as it is, you are seeking to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from God. This Abraham did not do. You are doing the deeds of your father. They said to him, we were not born of fornication. We have one father, God. Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me. For I proceeded forth and have come from God. For I have not even come of my own accord, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I'm saying? It is because you cannot hear my word. You are of your father, the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I speak the truth, you do not believe me. Which one of you convicts me of sin? If I speak truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of God hears the words of God. For this reason, you do not hear them, because you are not of God. Now, I want to explain this. I'm going to get right into it. So Jesus says in verse 31, if you abide or continue in my word, then you are truly my disciples. One test, not the exclusive test, but one test of authentic disciple making or authenticated discipleship is whether or not you and I abide in the words of Jesus. Not visit them from time to time, not pick and choose which we like, but abide, take refuge, take up residence in the word of God. The results of this abiding or residing or continuing in God's word is verse 32, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Now, what I want to explain for you is what is recorded for us here in the verses I just read in John's gospel is a biblical demonstration of a people living by a self-confected narrative that denies truth. Why am I saying that? As they were having this dialogue, Jesus happens to make a statement that, dare I say, triggers the audience. He says, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Now, I want to remind you that these are some Jews who were giving ear to what Jesus was saying. But the moment he indicated that they were in need of freedom, potentially, they couldn't take it. Whoa, verse 33. We are Abraham's descendants and have never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? Now, let's take and put aside for the moment, because really the text is revealing their unawareness, their lack of awareness that the freedom that Jesus is talking about is spiritual and eternal freedom. But let's take that away for a moment and put that aside. He is speaking to Jews. Yet when he indicates that they may be in need of freedom, they get offended. Whoa. Hold up, Chief. Don't you know we're Abraham's seed? We ain't never been slaves to anybody. And at that moment, that's why I'm glad it's Jesus and not Abe. So I'd be like, whoa. Isn't like the defining feature of your identity? Let me give, there's an entire book of the scripture, you know? It's called Exodus. What is that about? Isn't the whole thrust of being Abraham's seed that Yahweh revealed to Abraham that in you, that I'll bless all the nations of the earth, and I'm creating a people for myself, and until the iniquity of the Amorites are full, that you and your descendants will be enslaved for 400? Is that not a part of the type of, not only the history, but the history that is a core tenet of who you are? Why am I highlighting that? Brothers and sisters, when you have a people that is committed, they have a prior commitment to a narrative. And let me be specific, a narrative that denies truth with a capital T. Any narrative, when you have a people that is given to any narrative that denies truth with a capital T, there is no amount of factual reasoning that will disabuse them of their prior commitment. The whole history is being freed from Egyptian slavery. But in this moment, they're so offended at the suggestion of any form of slavery, their emotional arousal deprives them of the ability to be rational. Then as Jesus continues on talking, and basically say, oh, wait, you're saying you're the children of Abraham, the Mosaic covenant, right? Thou shalt not kill, but y'all trying to kill me. Then they go, no, our Father is God. They say it like that. Our Father is God. So wait, why y'all ditch Abraham all of a sudden? Well, what happened? Which is another indication when you're dealing with a post-truth society or a post-truth individual. Because once you provide a proper, dare I say, reply to their initial delusion, they don't continue in that same vein of dialogue. They change the goalpost to start another subject matter. That lets you know you're not dealing with people who are committed to the truth. But I want to end this conversation the way I began it. So how do you contend, or as Abdul Murray said, how do you advocate for clarity and meaning in a post-truth culture? Jesus told us right at the beginning, continue in Jesus's word. Continue in the word of Christ, because the reality is insight is the product of revelation. And revelation is a spiritual phenomenon. There is no amount of informing that will take place that will cause scales to drop from one's eye. And as we engage, remember, duty is ours, but results are the Lord's. Our call is to be his witnesses. Our call is not to be the triumphant victor, because he is the triumphant victor.
What would it be like if every person knew that they were created in the image of God?
After 2 years in the making, American Family Studios proudly presents In His Image, delighting in God's plan for gender and sexuality.
There are only two sexes, male or female. If you're conceived with a Y chromosome, you will develop into a male.
In His Image is a documentary featuring life-changing testimonies of former LGBT individuals.
In my most formative years of development of sexuality, I went through a brutal time of sexual distortion, molestation.
Visit inhisimage.movie to watch In His Image.
Well, everybody, welcome to this unboxing video as we unbox my hormone blockers.
In His Image from American Family Studios is available now for free viewing. Visit inhisimage.movie.
You're made in the image of God.
A Moment of Truth with Gary Bryden of the Association of Independent Methodists.
William Wilberforce wrote to his son, quote, "Let me encourage you not to be seduced with neglecting, curtailing, or hurrying over your morning prayers. Guard against neglecting God in the closet. There's nothing more fatal in the life and power of religion. How much better I might serve God if I cultivated a closet communion with Him. Haste in prayer means failure. Time spent in prayer is time saved. It is no wonder God was able to use William Wilberforce to end slavery in England. Like Jesus, he was a man of prayer before action. Luke 6:12 says, Jesus went out into the mountains to pray and continued all night in prayer to God.
The Association of Independent Methodists, like-minded congregations doing together what can't be done separately. Visit aim2020.com.
Brian Fisher here with today's Life and Liberty Minute. Thomas Jefferson at the dawn of the Republic wrote that states can nullify unconstitutional laws or executive orders that come from Washington. His reason was simple. Washington works for us. We do not work for them. Since the federal government is the creation of the states, not the other way round, states are the master, not the servant. States are free, Jefferson said, to stack anything that comes out of Washington up against the Constitution and reject any edict or directive that contradicts it. Iowa may be about to do that. As of Monday in Iowa, there will be no more mask requirements, no more social distancing requirements, and no more limits on public gatherings, including churches. In other words, Iowa is about to become the land of the free and the home of the brave. Go Iowa!
Catch Brian Fisher on Focal Point, weekday afternoons at 1:05 Central on American Family Radio.
Shining light into the darkness, this is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. I am going to continue what I started toward the end of the program yesterday, because, you know, that disrespectful clock, man. And I was kind of rushing, you know, because I knew the clock was getting started. You know, I got to tell y'all, I could probably have 2 or 3 hours. That clock could still be disrespectful, because I'll run out of show before I run out of stuff to talk about. This is true. This is true. But yesterday I mentioned, and this is, and some of you may be asking, hey, why don't you spend more time talking about the impeachment trial? You know why I want to tell you? One, because it is nothing but kabuki political theater. Everybody in the Senate chamber knows exactly what's going to happen. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. The vote that Rand Paul called for, questioning the constitutionality of it, revealed. Because it takes 67 senators to convict. And more importantly, as I explained on this program, it is an unconstitutional farce. You're saying you're trying to impeach, and I want to make sure everyone understands this technically. The Senate does not have the authority to impeach. The Senate conducts a trial on an impeachment lobbied by the House. The House is the only body constitutionally that can impeach. An impeachment is a formal accusation. The Senate has the prerogative to convict or to acquit on that accusation. And people are like, oh, he's being impeached. He's been impeached twice. Accused and not convicted. All right? The second thing, or the third thing, I'm losing count. If it's an impeachment of a president, as you're saying it is, where is the Chief Justice? The Chief Justice told these folks, this is not constitutional. As a result, I won't be there. But because they're so committed to this really, their goal, yes, their primary goal is they want to prohibit President Trump from being able to run for office again, which should cause you to ask yourself, I wonder why they're so concerned about him running for office again. Because if they feel like the American people truly rejected him as a viable leader, what they scared of? If you're so confident that the American people had the chance and they decided that they didn't want him to be president, then why are you going through this kabuki theater? Next, and I've explained this before, read Article 1, Section 3. The only remedies available for a trial on impeachment is remedy number 1, removal from office. All right? Someone explain it to me. How can you remove a man from office? He is no longer in office. And the Constitution says that the remedies the only available remedies for an impeachment trial is removal from office and disqualification for future office. It doesn't say or. Have you noticed that? But the Democrats in the Senate want to treat that and in the U.S. Constitution as if it is an or. It's not an or. The Senate does not have the option to say we're going to remove you from office or disqualify you from future office. The only way you get to the consideration of disqualification for future office is if you have an agreement by a supermajority of the Senate to remove a seated official from office. This ain't high-level stuff. So I'm not compelled to give lots of time and attention to this because they're going to do this theatrical presentation, and guess what's going to happen? Nothing. President Trump will be acquitted, and what they will have just wasted the American people's time, money, and resources when they should be doing other things. But because they've ceded their legislative authority to the executive branch through all of these agencies, they don't have nothing else they want to do, generally speaking. But it's, as I said yesterday, it's amazing to me that as this is happening, this political theater that is transpiring in the U.S. Senate right now, it's amazing that Molly Ball, who is the author of this article I started referring to yesterday in Time Magazine, 25 pages long, I can't believe they published this. And I explained to you that the title of the article literally is The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign. The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign. That's not the full title. It continues, The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign that saved the 2020 election. Now, they are describing their actions as having saved the 2020 election. It should immediately cause you to say, saved it from what? Well, to answer that question, I might as well start from the beginning. Because Molly Ball, guys, and listen, I think Jeff posted a link on the Hamilton Corner live stream so you can read the article for yourself. But it's on page 24 of 25. Molly Ball literally said this, quote, there's an impulse for some to say, let me read it again. There's an impulse for some to say, voters decided and democracy won. But that is a mistake. What? So you are admitting so that the voters didn't decide? Now, listen, I know what she meant to say, but that ain't what she wrote. And I can read. And I have discernment. Somebody reading, there's an impulse for some to say voters decided and democracy won. So you're saying voters didn't decide? Oh, yeah, because it's the secret history of the shadow campaign. She also said, and man, I'm telling you, people that are wicked and social and political regressives, they cannot help themselves. Molly Ball wrote, quote, the system didn't work magically. Democracy is not self-executing. Now, just stop for a second and think about that. This woman said democracy isn't self-executing. Do you understand what she's saying and the implications of that statement? She's saying, at a minimum, if you give the most charitable reading possible, she's saying in order for, and y'all know this is one of my pet peeves, but they intentionally refer to our system of government as a democracy when it is a constitutional republic. They want to obfuscate the reality that our founding fathers created a system of government where there is an objective standard of law that is not subject to the machinations and the temporal, fleeting whims and fancies of a tyranny of the majority. That's how they described it. They said there are constitutional bedrock principles that it should take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of persuasion, a lot of deliberation, a lot of discourse, a lot of debate in order to change. And they actually refer to the Bible as an example of objective legal standards and objective principles. They described a absolute democracy as a mobocracy, a tyranny of the majority. When she says that in her recasting of our system of government, when she says that democracy is not self-executing, she is saying that it takes more than the will of the people to accomplish what she believes should be accomplished for our country. Now, all of this is happening at the exact same time when they're trying President Trump for impeachment because people, now let's be clear, I in no way, and I categorically, without qualification, denounce the violent rioting and storming of the Capitol. Period, point blank, period, no qualification. But no buts. Are we going to act as if, though, people don't have a legitimate question or concern as to what happened in our nation? Specifically concerning the November election? I know, Abe, you can't say that out loud. I thought we lived in a free country. This woman says, democracy is not self-executing. She goes on to explain, quote, that's why, listen to this. I'm going to read the whole phrasing again. The system didn't work magically. Democracy is not self-executing. That's why the participants want the secret history of the 2020 election told. Even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream, a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries, ideologies, working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information. They were not rigging the election. They were fortifying it. And they believe the public needs to understand the system's fragility in order to ensure that democracy in America endures. Did y'all hear that? Molly Ball described it as a cabal herself. And I told you yesterday, Merriam-Webster defines a cabal as, quote, the contrived schemes of a group of persons secretly united in a plot as to overturn a government. Molly Ball admitted that there were nefarious actors, as she described, a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, to change rules and laws, to steer media coverage, and control the flow of information. That's what she said. To control the flow of information. They weren't rigging the election. Not rigging it. Because remember, democracy is not self-executing, you see. It has to be helped. See, it needs training will. See, the will of the people needs a little assistance to get where we really needed to go. Oh my gosh. In plain sight. In plain sight. And she said, See, a lot of people, they want to get credit for it. No, we want the credit. We want to explain how this happened. In plain sight. All right. So let's dig into it, shall we? I'll start with the same quote I read yesterday. Molly Ball said, quote, within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort. She's quoting President Trump. Let me be specific. On December 2nd, President Trump said this, and Molly Ball is quoting him in this Time magazine article. Quote, within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint the winner, even while many key states were still being counted. Molly Ball says, in a way, Trump was right. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests. You heard that? One that both curtailed the protests. I just have to pause. Because there are lots of you who are listening to me. Some of you attended some of these protests. And you thought, well, this is just the genuine feelings of American people. Did you realize that these protests were staged and coordinated events? And if you did not realize that, and now Molly Ball is telling you that it's coordinated, how do you feel? How do you feel? Karl Marx described people, and if the shoe fits, wear it, as useful idiots. Because they don't know what they're doing. All they're doing is emoting. They're just feeling. And it's those people that we can use to accomplish our objectives. Molly Ball is admitting in print, quote, there was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated resistance? This is remarkable. It included CEOs of company with surprises that was the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. There was a pact formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of both the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which usually represents big business interests, and the AFL-CIO, which usually represents organized labor, which was published on Election Day. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain. Though much of this is, I'm reading right from the Times article. Molly Ball says, quote, though much of this activity took place on the left, it was separate from the Biden campaign and crossed ideological lines. Their work touched every aspect of the election. They got states to change voting systems and laws and helped secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding. They successfully pressured social media companies to take a harder line against disinformation and use data-driven strategies to fight viral smears. Now, you wondered how that Hunter Biden story magically just poof, vamoosed. Molly Ball is telling you it was a part of their plan. It was a part of their plan. Let's keep going, shall we? I told you yesterday that a part of their, and I have to read this again because Molly Ball said that this well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, and steer media coverage and control the flow of information. But they weren't rigging elections. They were fortifying them. Fortifying them. Here's an example. Quote, Molly Ball writing again. In March, that's March of 2020, activists, that let you know how long they've been working on this. In March 2020, activists appealed to Congress to steer COVID relief money to election administrations. Now, didn't I tell you guys? When we had the World Economic Forum and all of these people, they saw COVID as an early Christmas gift. Because as the Prime Minister of Canada told you, we now have the opportunity to expedite our pre-pandemic plans. Molly Ball is telling you that their cabal was working on the election at the same time that COVID was hitting in March of 2020. And I told you about Event 230 in New York. But they don't want you to understand that pandemic, that reminds me of something that sounds a lot like plandemic.
Come on, man. It's a no-brainer. Men go to the men's restrooms and women go to the women's. But that's not how President Biden sees it. He issued an executive order allowing men to go into women's restrooms, effectively putting women and children in danger. This order includes any public high school and university that receives federal funding. Come on, man. Act now. Send an email to President Biden and tell him, come on, man, protect our women and children from predators. Just go to afa.net. afa.net.
On the next Today's Issues.
We appreciate hearing from you. You can send us an email at comments@afr.net.
I pastor a small church, so I had to have a full-time job on the side. When I try to feed the flock, y'all feed me, and I thank God for y'all.
If you want to watch the show live, you can go to Facebook or YouTube. Just type in Today's Issues, and you can also access the stories that we talk about.
Don't miss the next Today's Issues. Weekday mornings at 11 Eastern, 10 Central on American Family Radio.
Loss of liberties. This is David Wheaton, host of The Christian Worldview. The book of Revelation states that the world will be ruled by an authoritarian leader called the Beast or Antichrist. And he causes all, the small and the great, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And he provides that no one will be able to buy or to sell except the one who has the mark. To hold this degree of authority means that individual liberties, such as the freedom of religion, speech, and to bear arms, will have been greatly restricted. How will that happen? Through laws or executive orders with promises of physical or financial safety, security, and equity. It's a bad exchange. Hear this most recent topic at thechristianworldview.org, and then tune in next time for another program that will sharpen your worldview. Striving with you to think biblically and live accordingly. Visit thechristianworldview.org.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes with news and commentary next.
My goal as a teacher is to impart knowledge and then be able then for them to take it and turn it into wisdom. As we teach, I think, okay, 5 years down the road, how will the material that I am teaching them really affect their lives and their careers?
Hi, Todd Starnes here. Truett offers biblically centered degree programs. Check out truett.edu/Starnes. Sierra showed up in Anoka, Minnesota with $200 in her pocket and a backpack. A down-on-her-luck Navy veteran, she found shelter at a transitional home for veterans, Haven for Heroes. It's a nonprofit supported in part by Mike Lindell, the founder of MyPillow. Sierra was an EMT in the military, and for whatever reason, she ended up on hard times. Joe and Jake Maurer owned the Chevy dealership in town. When they heard about Sierra's plight, they decided to offer some help. She needed a way to get around town and get to job interviews. So the other day, Sierra was summoned to the local American Legion post, and that's where Joe and Jake presented Sierra with a brand new car. There were lots of hugs that day and lots of hope for brighter days. Thanks to the kindness of strangers, Sierra will now be able to navigate life's journey with a bit more ease. I'm Todd Starnes.
The Hamilton Quarter podcast and one-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Quarter on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner. I got to move quickly because I have a lot of information I want to get. I don't want to get caught by the disrespectful music. All right. So, the architect of this cabal, Mike Podhorzer, Podhorzer, Podhorzer. He is a senior advisor to the president of the AFL-CIO. Molly Ball said from his apartment in the suburbs of D.C., he coordinated all of these organizations and all of these people to participate in this cabal. All right? I said that yesterday. Molly Ball wrote that in March, activists appealed to Congress to steer COVID relief money to election administration. Led by the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, more than 150 organizations signed a letter to every member of Congress seeking $2 billion in election funding. While you're thinking about your loved one's health and safety, they are thinking about election funding. Let that sink in. Molly Ball says the appeal was somewhat successful because the CARES Act, passed later that month, contained $400 million in grants to state election administrators, and it was used to aid in the massive mail-in voting. She even brags the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative chipped in $300 million. It was a failure at the federal level, she says. Oh, she's quoting Amber McReynolds. It was a failure at the federal level that 2,500 local election officials were forced to apply for philanthropic grants to fill their needs. Amber McReynolds says that, which she's going to be a prominent figure. You want to keep your ears up for her because she's a former Denver election official who now heads the nonpartisan National Vote at Home Institute. Now strap your seatbelts on for this because you're about to go on a bumpy ride. Molly Ball reveals, quote, McReynolds, the same Amber McReynolds, her 2-year-old organization, the National Vote at Home Institute. The National Vote at Home Institute was 2 years old in March of 2020. They have been preparing for voting at home before March of 2020. McReynolds' 2-year-old organization became a clearinghouse for a nation struggling to adapt. The Institute gave secretaries of state from both parties technical advice on everything from which vendors to use to how to locate voting drop boxes. Pause. I'm going to pause the quote, all right? Can somebody tell me how you go from an organization that you started just 2 years ago, and now you have ascended to the levels of power and influence to such a degree to where you're able to get every Secretary of State in the nation on the phone to advise them as to who they should use as the local vendors to conduct the voting and the elections in their state and in their counties and in their local municipalities. So I can start an organization today, and in 2022, I will be the one advising secretaries of state all across the country as to who they should use, what software they should use for their voting machines, which people they should use, what transportation outlets they should use to collect these mail-in ballots. Do y'all hear what I'm telling you? A 2-year-old organization has access to all of the secretaries of state across the country. I was born that night, but it wasn't last night. It kind of gives you an idea. Y'all know. Back to Molly Ball's article. Quote, in a presentation that Amber McReynolds made to Podhorse's group, McReynolds detailed the importance of absentee ballots for shortening lines at polling places and preventing an election crisis. The Institute, Amber McReynolds' 2-year-old organization, the Institute's work helped 37 states and Washington, D.C. bolster mail-in voting. But it wouldn't be worth much having the mail-in voting in place if the people didn't take advantage. So then she worked with, Amber McReynolds, invited the Voter Participation Center, which in a normal year would have deployed canvassers door to door to get out the vote. But instead, this year, they conducted focus groups in April and May to find out what would get people to vote by mail. Back to Molly Ball's article, quote, the effort had to overcome heightened skepticisms in some communities. Many black voters preferred to exercise their franchise in person or didn't trust the mail. National civil rights groups worked with local organizations to get the word out that this was the best way to ensure one's vote. And the best way to ensure one's vote was counted. In the end, here's another bomb from Molly Ball's revelations. In the end, nearly half the electorate cast ballots by mail in 2020. Practically a revolution in how people voted. It's a miracle. In 2 years, over half the voters voted by mail. Over half. When we have bipartisan reports from former President Jimmy Carter saying that voting by mail is the easiest way to defraud an election. About a quarter voted early in person. Only 1/4 of voters cast their ballots in the traditional way, in person on election day. Guys, that is revolutionary. Media coordination? Sure. Molly Ball describes Laura Quinn, who is a veteran progressive operative, who started to strategize as to how we can suppress this, which they call disinformation. Now, you heard the word I used? Suppress disinformation. One component was tracking, which they describe as dangerous lies that might otherwise spread unnoticed. Researchers then provided information to campaigners or the media to track down sources and expose them. Molly Ball is admitting that the media took its cues in the run-up to the 2020 election from Podhosers' alliance, or dare I say, cabal. Cabal. And again, to let you know how long they've been working on this, check this out. Thank you, Molly Ball, for all of this revelation. Molly Ball says this, quote, in November 2019, Mark Zuckerberg invited 9 civil rights leaders to dinner at his home, where they warned him about the danger of the election-related falsehoods that were already spreading unchecked. Vanita Gupta, president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, then I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Said, quote, it took pushing, urging, conversations, brainstorming, all of that to get to a place where we ended up with more rigorous enforcement. Vanita Gupta, who was at that dinner at Mark Zuckerberg's house, also met with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and others. Oh, you want to know what Vanita Gupta is doing now? I'm so glad you asked. Vanita Gupta has now been nominated by Joe Biden for Associate Attorney General of the Department of Justice. Doesn't that make you feel all warm and fuzzy? So Vanita goes from having dinner at Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch's house to where she persuades good vibrations, where she persuades him, hey, yo, you need to step up your enforcement game. They got some stories that can negatively affect the election. And then magically, nobody hears about Hunter Biden unless you listen to American Family Radio or you listen to some other conservative outlets. I can't tell you the number of people who still to this day had no idea about Hunter Biden's laptop. And then magically, she's now Joe Biden's Rod Rosenstein. I'm telling you. Then I wanted to explain a little bit about this because Podhoser was the quarterback of getting all of these groups together to prepare for what they call mass movement, the civil unrest. Remember, everybody was expecting D.C. to be torched and all of the protests, and then when they thought that Biden was going, then nothing happened. According to Molly Ball, quote, so the word went out, stand down, protect the results. We will not be activating the entire national mobilization network today, but remain ready just in case we may need you. That's what she wrote, guys. The stand down order was issued from Podhoser's apartment. But that wasn't all they had to do. Molly Ball then explained that after they were able to fortify the election, not rig it, fortify, now they need to protect the results. So the new ground zero then became Michigan. And look at what Molly Ball wrote. Oh, I need to hurry up. This clock. All right, hurry up. Quote, as they mapped out the steps in the election certification process, activists settled on a strategy of foregrounding the people's right to decide, demanding their voices be heard and calling attention to the racial implications of disenfranchising Black Detroit voters. They flooded the Wayne County Canvassing Board's November 17th certification meeting with on-message testimony. To say it a different way, remember how the Canvassing Board was considering whether or not they were going to certify the election? And then you had these masses of people that start calling everybody there racist. You're just a racist. You're just a racist. You're just a racist. You're just a racist. That was a coordinated strategy. Molly Ball then reveals, quote, election boards were one pressure point. Another was GOP-controlled state legislatures, who Trump believed could declare the election void and appoint their own electors. And so President Trump invited the GOP leaders of the Michigan legislature, House Speaker Lee Chatfield and Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, to Washington on November 20th. But what did they do? Molly Ball reveals it. Quote, activists scanned flight schedules and flocked to the airports on both ends of Speaker Shirkey's journey to D.C. They stalked the man and harassed him in person at the airports. Some of you are wondering, what happened to the Michigan State Legislature? They were intimidated by these people. Follow them to D.C. from Michigan, follow them back from D.C. back to Michigan. Oh, guys, I have so much stuff I have to skip around because it's getting late. A lot of people wonder, what happened to the Republican state legislatures? Some of these people were really afraid. We saw what happened to Josh Hawley at his house in the D.C. area. And you think that only happened to those folks in D.C.? No. They scan their fight schedules. Then, one last step with the state canvassing board, they had to persuade them to stand down. And after Michigan, Molly Ball says, the dominoes fell. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and the rest of the states certified their electors too. Man. And I've already told you, Molly Ball is bragging because she says, quote, there's an impulse for some to say voters decided and democracy won. But it is a mistake to think that this election cycle was a show of strength for democracy. It shows how vulnerable democracy is. Molly Ball literally is admitting that all of these things are transpiring behind the scenes expressly because they did not trust the American people to vote with informed civic engagement. They, as she said it herself, this is not Abe's words, she said it herself, that they employed a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies, working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, to change rules and laws, to steer media coverage, and to control the flow of information. That is what happened. And you have all of these people right now, if you dare suggest that what Molly Ball said happened. Molly Ball said this happened. But if you say that it happened, oh, the FBI will track your social media postings. Oh, you're a white nationalist. I had somebody call me a white nationalist. If you just listen to the radio, you've never seen my pristine, ebony-laden face, I would invite you to take a gander. Because last time I checked, my tan was permanent. Guys, listen. And some of that, hey, how we seeing all of this? How can you laugh? The same way I started off. This is not the first time we've encountered a post-truth society. And this is evidence of just how deeply wicked our nation is. But the encouragement is Jesus is still in the business of opening blind eyes. May we be his witness.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
The American Family Association and Focus on the Family present the